Alright, YouTube, so we are back again, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we are again talking about some of the translations coming out of the Material Ultimania, of course, done by Aitaikimochi on Twitter. Before we even hop into today's topic, I think going forward for the next several days or so, we're going to do daily uploads, because there's several translations that she's done that I want to make videos about, but I do every other day uploads, and I'm getting kind of behind on all that. So expect daily uploads for just a little bit. Anyways, on to the topic of the video. So what we're talking about today is yet another supposed-to-be dead character that people either think is alive or want to be alive. And of course, we're talking about Jessie. There's a quote coming out of the Material Ultimania that people are taking as confirmation of Jessie being alive from the co-director Toriyama. And I hate to be this guy again, but it is yet another vague statement, man. I don't know why people jump to these conclusions. Let's just hop right into the translation. He says, Jessie's Avalanche is a designated mechanic, and she always had a passion for that kind of stuff ever since she was a child. Although you can only see her time as an actress from the photos in her house, I would like to have her reappear on stage at the Gold Saucer once more someday. Did you happen to catch the confirmation? No? Good, because I'd be surprised if you did. Again, it's another vague statement. He says he'd like to see her be on stage at the Gold Saucer someday. This is a very vague statement. For one, it could just be a fleeting thought he had. I would just like to see Jessie on stage someday. That could be all it is. Now, don't get me wrong, I get where people are coming to that conclusion. Him saying he wants to see her on stage seems to imply that she would have to be alive for that. I get where people are coming to that conclusion, but you gotta think outside the box, man. This could mean a lot of different things. Now, we've talked in the past about the possibility of Jessie being in Part 2 even though she's dead through, flashbacks. We know that Erica Lembeck said she would like to reprise the role if given the opportunity. We know somewhat recently she was in the studio recording for something. Could be remake-related, could be nothing. But the group at some point, whether it's Barrett, Tifa, Biggs, possibly Wedge as well, because he's probably alive, could be talking about Jessie, reminiscing about Jessie. And it could be when she used to work at the Gold Saucer, and that could be how they do it. It could just be a simple flashback to when she used to work at Gold Saucer. Back before her dad had Mako poisoning, and back before she was an eco-terrorist and she was living her dream. They could just be talking about her, and that's how they could show her on stage at the Gold Saucer. She doesn't have to be alive for that. Also, when it comes to remake, whether it's Part 2 or beyond, we're at some point going to go to the Gold Saucer, right? So that could be the point where the group wants to maybe talk about and reminisce about Jessie. That's when the flashback could happen. Or once we get into the Gold Saucer, there could be something there that involves Jessie. Whether it's like a picture or maybe an old video or something. Something like a screen somewhere that's playing video of dancers and it just happens to be Jessie when she was younger. Now, of course, that all being said, playing devil's advocate, because I like to look at it from all different angles if I can when it comes to an argument or a discussion, he could mean that she would be alive for that sometime, because he says reappear on stage, as in physically be there on stage. That could be what he means. And he is co-director. He does have some pull, man. I don't know that he could bring a character back from the dead. If Jessie is supposed to be dead, in the story, in the narrative, but he wants her back, if he could bring her back from the dead, I don't know if he has that kind of pull, but maybe. And honestly, it'd be a fantastic fitting in for what a lot of people think is the best character with Remake Part 1. A lot of people love Jessie. If she is somehow alive when it comes to Part 2, maybe us defeating the Whisperers brought her back to life or some shit, or I don't know. Who knows exactly, right? Maybe she's alive when it comes to Part 2 and beyond. If she is alive and we could, she could get her happy ending. Maybe she quits being with Avalanche. Maybe still helps us, but is no longer bombing buildings and killing people, right? She quits doing all of that. And maybe she just goes back to her regular life, taking care of her dad, taking care of her mom, working at the Gold Saucer. That'd be an awesome ending for the character of Jessie. And hell, man, we could go even beyond Jessie. Maybe they do that with Biggs and Wedge as well. The characters that initially died when it came to the original FF7, when it comes to Remake, maybe they get their happy ending finally. Maybe Biggs stays back at the orphanage and helps take care of those kids. Maybe Wedge just goes back home and starts taking care of his cats or something. Maybe they don't have to die anymore. They could go that route as well. And to be honest, man, as I'm talking about it, that gives me a good feeling. There's a part of me that would like to see that. As much as I think Jessie is dead, there's a part of me that would like to see those characters that were kind of throwaway characters. Let's be honest. In the original game, we don't spend a whole lot of time with them. Their death is a bit of motivation for our group, but we don't really talk about them too much throughout the game. So their death didn't have a whole lot of impact on the overall story. I would almost like to see them do that, but I don't know that they will. And as I've said in the past, doing multiple videos, we won't go super into it here, but just comparing Jessie's death scene to Biggs' quote-unquote death scene, it's more definitive that she died in that scene than Biggs. You could interpret those scenes very differently. And the single glove on the table at the end of the game, I don't think is confirmation of her being alive, because it's just a single glove. Why wouldn't... If Jessie was alive, she took her gloves off, why wouldn't there be two gloves on the table next to him? It's just one. What I've said in the past is, maybe it's a memento for Biggs. Maybe people amongst the Rebel found those gloves, they know it's Jessie's, they want to give it to him. Maybe he'll start wearing it or something, it's kind of remembrance of Jessie. Look, man, I don't want to be a downer. I know people want to be hopeful and excited that Jessie's alive and possibly going to be in Part 2. And other channels out there are looking at different translations from this Ultimania and claiming things are, factual, confirmed. It's not me, man. I look at things from all angles, and unless they flat out say Jessie is alive, or as we've talked about recently, Zack is alive, I'm not going to say that he is. I'm not going to say anything's confirmation of anything. But also, as I mentioned in the past, when it comes to both those topics, I'm not writing off the possibility of the opposite of what I think. Zack could very well be alive. Jessie could very well be alive. But I think the opposite of that. And we'll see what happens. And let's look at this pretty objectively, too. Okay, what do we know about Part 2 right now? Nothing, right? We know pretty much nothing. So do you think they're going to tell us within an Ultimania that's dropping, multiple Ultimanias at this point, that are dropping years before Part 2 is probably going to come out, they're going to confirm shit that's going to be in Part 2? Probably not. Do you think they're going to confirm Zack's alive and Jessie's alive and shit? No. Of course not, because we don't know anything about Part 2. But anyways, that is pretty much the video. Again, going forward, we're going to have daily uploads for however many days. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see what's up. So if you happen to have seen this already from some other YouTube channel or on Twitter or something like that, did you take this as confirmation of Jessie being alive? How did you interpret this? And also, since we're talking about it, do you think Jessie is alive? Either way, leave your thoughts and more in the comment section below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We'll save more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid. I'm a Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Well, later, guys.
Don't you guys have somewhere to be?
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.